Good evening and welcome to the PACE Alliance City Council Candidate Forum. First and foremost, I want to thank each of our candidates for their willingness to run for City Council and to take the time this evening to share your opinions and your priorities. I also want to thank our in-house audience and listeners for your time this evening. And I would be remiss if I did not thank our local media who is covering tonight's forum, KNIA, KRLS Radio, Marion County Express, and Pella Fiber, Pella TV, Channel 40, for sharing tonight's information with our voters. My name is Karen Eischen, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Pella Area Community and Economic Alliance, or PACE Alliance, as you may know it. The PACE Alliance is our community's Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development organization, representing nearly 300 business members. Our number one job is to advocate for our members. We believe that a thriving business community and effective city governance are essential partners in shaping a prosperous future for our city. Tonight, we have the distinct honor of hosting the Candidate Forum, which serves as a critical platform for all of us to gain deeper insights into the visions, policies, and commitments of those seeking to represent us on City Council. We invite you to actively listen and critically evaluate the candidates' positions. We hope tonight's forum will provide valuable insights as you make your informed choice and cast your vote on November 7. We have asked the candidates a few questions prior to the forum, which will differ from what you hear this evening. Their written responses will be posted on our website, pella.org, tomorrow morning, and will remain there till November 7, or through November 7, excuse me. We encourage you to read each candidate's responses to those questions as well. Together, we strive to strengthen the fabric of our community and ensure that our city remains a wonderful place to live, work, and thrive. I would now like to introduce and turn the mic over to tonight's facilitator, Dr. Andrew Green. Come on up.
Good evening, candidates. Good evening, everyone in the audience and everyone listening or watching live in the Pella community. In a moment, each candidate will be given 90 seconds to offer an opening statement regarding her or his candidacy for City Council or Mayor. After opening statements are completed, I have a series of questions which focus on local economic development in the Pella community. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer each question. A timekeeper seated in front of the stage will hold a card up when you have 30 seconds left, 15 seconds left, and when your time has expired. The order in which the candidates will answer questions has been randomized by office by coin flip to ensure fairness, and then we will rotate through the offices and candidates. We ask the audience to hold their applause until the completion of the forum. Audience members may submit questions to be asked of the candidates. If you are interested in submitting a question, it must be related to local economic development, and questions cannot be posed to a single candidate or to a group of candidates. Due to time constraints, the submission of a question does not guarantee that it will be asked during the forum. If you would like to submit a question, 3x5 cards are available from PACE Alliance staff members. If you would like a card, please raise your hand and a card will be provided to you. Once you have finished writing your question on the card, please raise your hand again and it will be collected. If you submit a question that is not asked during the forum, the PACE Alliance encourages you to engage with the candidates throughout the remainder of the campaign in order to get your specific questions answered. Finally, we are broadcasting live tonight on KNIA KRLS Radio and on Pella Fiber Pella TV. We ask the audience that you please stay in your seats during the question and answer period to minimize noise in the hall. A 2 to 3 minute break is scheduled about halfway through the forum for folks to stand up, mill around, use the restroom if needed. With that, we'll turn to the opening statements from the candidates. Tonight, we are fortunate to have all 8 candidates for Pella City Council and Mayor here with us. For Mayor, we have candidates Tony Bachhoven and Don DeWard. For the at-large City Council seat, we have candidates Liz Sporer and Harold Van Stryland. For the City Council Ward 2 seat, we have Calvin Banstra and John Butler. And for the City Council Ward 4 seat, we have Dave Hopkins and Ryle Smith. We'll go ahead and move to our candidate opening statements. We're going to start with the candidates for mayor with Tony Bachhoven.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending tonight. I'm running for mayor for several reasons, but the main thing is, we've been a community for ages that has looked out for the future. We've tried to position ourselves in a way that would leave our community in a better place as each one of us would leave council or mayor for the next generation, and we've lost that. It's time that we get our community back to where we once were, where we worked hard to be, where we can be very self-sufficient, where the citizens of this community recognize that they are in a partnership with its government. We've lost that. So what I promise to do as the mayor is rebuild the relationship and the trust that the community has lost in its city government.
And now to Mayor Don DeWard.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm Don DeWard, current mayor of Pella. Been in office, obviously, this is my 4th year now. Came in office 1st of January of 2020. Didn't have any idea what kind of an interesting year 2020 would be, but I think we survived COVID and all of that quite well. I am not a native of Pella, but I have lived here for 45 years, so I feel somewhat like a native. I have 4 children that have grown up here and 6 grandchildren that have grown up here, so very connected to the community in many different ways. I am running for re-election because we have accomplished so much in 4 years, but we're not done yet. There's still work to do. When you look at the economic environment tonight, we're especially talking about economics. We've had over 200 housing starts in this community in the 4 years, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. Our assessed valuations, tax valuations have risen 38% in those years. We've had several commercial developments, not just small ones, but big ones and a lot of small ones. And so we are on the right track. We are headed in the right direction, and we need to make sure that we continue to do that moving forward.
We'll now move to the at-large city council race and the opening statement from Harold Van Strylen.
My wife Elsie and I moved to Pelham over 40 years ago. Quite frankly, when we moved here, we planned to stay here 2 years and move back to Colorado. My mother was born in the Netherlands. I spent a lot of time in the Netherlands. In fact, when I worked for the German government, I lived about 30 minutes away. I enjoyed their Dutch heritage and buildings, and I really enjoy the Dutch architecture in Pella, and we have to keep that. We raised our family in Pella. Our kids went to school here. Our grandkids either attend school here or have attended school here. I served on the city council for 2 previous terms, and at that time I saw the end of a huge reduction in Pella's debt, actually to an historic low level. At the same time, a new Jordan well was dug, a new water treatment plant and reverse osmosis system was completed. Several other major street and sewer repairs were done in Oskaloosa and Washington Street corridors. Actually, I guess I first got somewhat interested in city government when I was working for the German government, then translating, and I saw that the cities of Essen, the cities of Düsseldorf, and the cities of Cologne could have a balanced budget. So right now in our financially stressed times, I am sort of concerned about all the people who are struggling. I'm out of time.
Opening statement from Councilwoman Spohr.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Borg-Spohr. Thank you all for being here. So I'm just wrapping up my first term as council at large, and I've just learned so much in the past 4 years. So I grew up here in this community. I left for a few years. My husband and I moved back 11 years ago, and we have called Main Street our home. We love this community. We work here. We live here. part of my role is to actually attract new people to Pella. And that's my professional life. In my personal life, I get to live here and also try and attract and connect with the people in this community. I think about the last 4 years, and as Don mentioned, so many wonderful things have happened. The number of houses, he's right, I think it's 203 housing permits. I think about the businesses that have also opened, amenities that have happened, really great things. I actually believe that the partnerships between the city, the businesses, the people in our community are stronger than ever. And so I look forward to that continuing, and I'd like to see a few more things happen in the next 4 years.
We'll now move to the candidates for Ward 2, starting with Councilman Calvin Bandstra.
Hello, and thank everybody for coming. I'm Calvin Bandstra. Whenever I go to a new website of a business or an entity, I always go first to the history section and the about section. So I thought I'd give you the history of Calvin Bandstra. Grew up on a dairy farm northeast of Pella, rural New Sharon. Growing up on a dairy farm, I thought there has to be a better way to make a living than milking cows. And then in the irony of ironies, as a banker, I now lend for robots that are assembled in Pella at Lely, which the city council helped come to Pella. So full circle on that. Went to Peoria Christian Grade School for Peoria, for those who are not from the area here. North Mahaska High School, Dordt College with a double major in agribusiness and accounting. And then started my work career as a bank examiner for the state of Iowa in 1985. And for those of you who have a little bit of gray hair here, you can remember the agricultural crisis that hit the Midwest during that time that totally changed the face of Iowa. From there, I became a lender at Lighton State Bank and then now at Bank Iowa. And during that time, I got my MBA from Drake. So as coming in here, this is the end of my first term. There's learned a lot. I feel that now, after the learning curve is over, that I can help to continue to do service for the citizens of Pella, and that's why I'm running again.
Next, the opening statement from John Butler.
Well, good evening. I'm glad to see everybody here taking an interest in local politics, which can be kind of dull at times, but here we are. Just a short intro. My wife and I are new to town. We've lived in town here about 3.5 years. Prior to that, we were in Colorado for 7 years. Found out that was too high, elevation-wise, and had to move to a lower elevation for health reasons. My parents were both veterans of World War II. My mother was an Army nurse. My dad was crew chief on C-47 flying the hump. My mother was from southeastern Minnesota. And I spent many summers on my grandfather's farm milking cows, Calvin, believe it or not. And during college, I went to Iowa. So that took me to Iowa State. I guess the highlight of my youth, we lived in Alaska for 3 years, which was a great place for a kid to live. We were there when it became a state in 1959. Went to Iowa State. I bought my first grain elevator when I was 25 years old and proceeded to grow into about 4 elevators. Decided that wasn't the way I was going to work the rest of my life. Went back to school, which was a great experience at 40, and became a CPA, and have worked for myself since then. So we're glad to be in Pella. It's a unique place. It's a great place to live. It's an easy place to live, I think, compared to Denver. If you don't believe me, go to Denver and drive around. Thank you.
We'll now move to the candidates in Ward 4, beginning with Councilman Dave Hopkins.
Thank you. Dave Hopkins, running for re-election in Ward 4. A little bit about me. I'm married to Bristol. I've got 4 kids here, 3 of them still in the Pella School District. Graduated from Central College in 2002. Lived in Pella ever since. I fell in love with the city of Pella in college. I grew up in Melcher, Dallas, a small town southwest of here, and loved the community. And decided this is a place I wanted to raise my family. A little bit about me. I'm just going to piggyback, I guess, on these 2 guys. I got my sister and my mom here, and we had a pet cow named Clover, and we milked it. So I want to continue the work that that we started here these past 4 years on council. We've still got some work to do, and I'm excited to do it.
Okay, and next, the opening statement from Ryle Smith.
Good evening. Ryle Smith. I am a local graduate of Pella. I did the typical response of all Pella students that graduate from Pella. We want to leave. We went, I left, and I realized how great a town we actually have here. So when I did marry my wife, Lisa, we decided we wanted to move back to Pella. I opened up a professional business. I'm a chiropractor here in town. We have done that for about 15 years together. She's an occupational therapist here at Wesley. So we are integrated heavily in this town. It's not the only thing we do. We keep quite busy. Actually, we have a young son that plays tons of soccer. So I have a lot of vested interest into this town. I think this town is phenomenal. After leaving Pella, we don't realize how special we have it here. We want to come back here and make it even better. And that's one of the reasons I'm here today, because through my professional career here, we have had problems, and I want to help other businesses and other people here so we can overcome those problems and work together and be more efficient. So that's kind of what I am here and why I'm sitting up here, because for years I tried to lay under the radar and just be an average resident of Pella, but now I want to sit up here and fight for everybody to help.
Thank you to our candidates for their opening statements. We're going to move to our first question. And the first question, we're going to start with the candidates in the at-large race and start with Liz Spohr. What is your fiscal philosophy? Specifically, how do you view the balance between the overall tax burden of Pella residents and the need to make strategic investments in Pella's future, which requires public revenues?
It's a great question, and one that's obviously been a hot topic here as of very recent. I think that you'll see that the city of Pella has done a really phenomenal job in being fiscally responsible for many, many years. Harold pointed out that they got their debt down, which is wonderful. But I also believe that you need to invest in the future. You can't do that by saving your pennies and keeping them in a bank and holding on to them. You also need to reinvest in ways that will continue to grow the community. As we continue to grow, you think about the new homes that are here, the new businesses that are here that are coming in. What that does is that brings in additional tax dollars. That allows us to then have more to grow and take care of our citizens here. Ultimately, a rising tide lifts all ships.
Mr. Van Strylen, same question to you about your fiscal philosophy.
Right. It's hard to argue about development because we do need development, and we do need quality of life. A lot of things that have changed since we have been here. By the same token, as development takes place, we have to make sure that we are fiscally responsible. As I said, when I was very close to watching how the economy worked when I was in Germany, they basically had balanced budgets. And I think we do have to watch that as well. Right now, we have many people in our community that are financially stressed. I know of people who have taken second jobs, and I don't want a lot of this to go on. So yes, we do want amenities, we do want to develop.
To our Ward 2 candidates, to John Butler first, what is your fiscal philosophy and how do you view the balance between the overall tax burden of Pella residents versus the need to make strategic investments?
Well, it is a difficult thing to balance, spending money or borrowing money to invest in amenities or improvements. It's important. We just have to make sure that we're borrowing money for the right reasons and that we know how it's going to get paid back. We want to know, is it going to be a burden on the taxpayers? We're going to have to raise taxes. There's several ways for the city to repay its debt. One is by raising tax rates. The other way is by raising the rate that we pay for electricity, water, and sewer services. All those different ways bring money into the city. We need to be judicious in how we do this because we want to attract new people, but we can't have everything at once, which is always a challenge for our generation, for the generation at hand.
Mr. Banstra, same question to you.
Well, I probably should state up front, as a banker that lends money, my answer may be a little biased, because that's the only way I get to eat. But when you look at that balance is what the question was about. I think Pella has done a very good job of that. Our levy is $10.20 per thousand, way lower than any of the surrounding communities. And another number I look at when you look at balance, the last published numbers, we can borrow up to $50 million of debt. Right now, we're at 8% of that level with our borrowed dollars. Oskaloosa is 49% of their level, Knoxville at 60% of their level, Newton at 65% of their level, all surrounding communities. So I think from that standpoint, I think we've done a good job of balancing the tax rate and the investment at the same time.
To our Ward 4 candidates, first to Dr. Smith, what is your fiscal philosophy and how do you view the balance between tax burden and strategic investment?
So the best way to answer that is, as a local business, I can't go and get a loan and not have to sit across the table from a banker and explain, why do I need a loan? And he or she has to explain to me if this loan will work, how will I pay it back, how will it work for my business? So there is good debt in our life. We talked about, or heard about that on the last council meeting, which that is a very true statement. We need some good debt in business. But then there's also bad debt. And I'm afraid there's times we're going to get too much bad debt, and we got to be able to figure out a way to grow our economy and keep the good debt, but stay away from the debt that's going to cause us a problem. So that's what I hope to bring here, is just to decide which way we can go and help the economy grow here in Pella.
Mr. Hopkins, same question to you about your fiscal philosophy.
Yeah. So fiscal philosophy is twofold. One, it's about making sure that whether it's a governmental entity, whether it's a business, that it cash flows, whether it's a household, that it cash flows, that you're spending less than you're bringing in. That's the case here for the city of Pella. We're cash flowing well. And as Calvin alluded to, that we're well under our limits. The other thing to think about in regards to fiscal policy is, what are you doing with your money and how are you investing it? Everybody's heard the old adage, it takes money to make money. And when invested wisely, it raises like Liz said, raises the shifts for everybody, just through economic development.
And to our mayoral candidates, to Mr. DeWard, what's your fiscal philosophy and how do you view that balance?
Well, I think I'm like everybody sitting in this room. I don't like to pay property tax, and I'm going to guess I probably pay a lot more than most everybody in here. But so it's important that we keep the tax rate as low as possible, and we have done that. I don't understand where all this talk about being fiscally irresponsible is coming from. Over the last 4 years, we have maintained our tax rate. Our fund balances have grown every year. Our undesignated fund balances have grown. And as a couple of the other council members said, we have to think about investing in our future. And investing in our future sometimes requires us to spend some money to do that, to make those investments. And so we're in rural Iowa. A lot of rural Iowa is dying a slow death. We don't have to be like that. We need to continue to invest in this community to help it grow. We have to be long-term focused, and that's how we're going to maintain or even improve what we have.
Mr. Bachhoven, same question to you.
Thank you. You know, there's a real difference between managing public money and private money. And when you're a developer, it's easy to manage private money in an aggressive way. But when you represent the taxpayer, there has to be a partnership. And there's no better example in this community than what was done at the Fields of Our Future at the sports park. That was a 50% cash in hand on behalf of the city, and the Fields of Our Future team went out and did an amazing job at raising the rest of the money. That's how you invest in your community in a positive way. Taking on debt and spreading it over large amounts of years doesn't necessarily positively set us up for success in the long run. We have to continue to grow, but we have to do it in a way that doesn't disallow people from living here. If you talk to young adults in the core age group of people that we want to attract to our community, they're not living here not because we don't have a dog park. They're living here because it costs a lot of money to live here. And we're all, if you own a property here, you're benefiting from that. And that's a great thing that our property values are high. But it needs to be a partnership. It needs to be a wise one. And as a mayor, I would think that you'd focus very much on making sure that you wisely spend the public's money and you don't do it the same way that you spend private money.
Let's move to our second question. We're going to begin with the candidates in Ward 2 with Calvin Banstra first. What are your top priorities if re-elected to the City Council, and why have you chosen these issues as your focus?
Well, I'll probably just list one because I've been heavily involved in it, and it'll take way more than 60 seconds to talk about it. We had a very interesting thing happen in Pella that I think we had the last nonprofit ambulance in the state essentially fooled while in office. And we as a city council had a big decision what to do, whether we take it over, which we're not required by law to, or we let it go to somebody else. We decided to take it over, and I was the liaison between the council and the nonprofit group as we made that transition. Furthermore, as the dynamics of the whole EMS situation throughout the state are not very favorable to finances, we've been working on a county-wide initiative to try to figure out a way that we can fund the EMS more efficiently throughout the county. That's a big issue. It's a work in process. There's a lot of pain going through it, but that would be like one I'd like to see through the end as a council member.
Okay. Mr. Butler, what are your priorities if elected to the council?
Yes, thank you. My priorities as I walk around my district and as I drive around town is that I see a lot of things that need to be maintained. Maintenance is a very dull thing to spend money on, but it's very critical. There's different streets that get a lot of use are rough. I think the downtown business district, which is where we generate a lot of money through tourism, frankly, Franklin Street in front of, between the park and the business districts looks like a patchwork quilt. And compared to what the street looks like in Amana colonies, it's, you need to drive over there and see that. I was in a neighborhood where the tennis court was closed because it needs maintenance. Local tennis courts, great for kids. I mean, there's just a lot of things to fix.
To our Ward 4 candidates, starting with Mr. Hopkins, what are your top priorities if re-elected to the council?
Yeah, thank you. So 4 years ago when I ran for council, my intention was to do what I could to make Pella an even more thriving community than it already is, and to do some work in council that would set our city up for generations to come. So far we've made some good strides and in development, housing, businesses, etc. There's still some work to be done. So my main focus is just to finish what we started.
Dr. Smith, same question to you.
So in Pella, I think a lot of people have already hit on, so the infrastructure is one of the key things I think we need to keep building and promoting. Like you said, there isn't much fanciness to it, but we need sewer issues. We do have some water issues. I have heard people complain that their sewers back up into their homes. These little simple things get pushed under the rug so quickly because they are not glamorous. But for the person who gets flooded or the business gets flooded, it matters to them. I also have to promote my son on this one. He's a soccer fan. We play soccer. We do select soccer. We are all over the place. And that field is disgraceful right now, and that's a simple maintenance thing that should have been done for years. So I got to cheer on a little bit of the soccer field and start putting some of that development back into that too as well.
To our mayoral candidates, Mr. Bachhoven, what are your top priorities if elected mayor?
Sure, thank you. First things first is we have to stop compromising the things that our public utilities need. We need to stop pushing off ambulances and fire trucks and radios and towers because we need to cut budgets to fund other projects in our community. I think everybody in here would agree when you pick up the phone to call the police or the ambulance, you expect somebody to be there and you expect somebody to be able to help you. We need to start taking better care of the things that we already have. As Dr. Smith mentioned, just take a walk out to the soccer field. Take a walk to the Kiwanis pickleball courts. Take a walk to the fountain down in the park. There's lots of amenities that we have that we aren't taking care of today, and we need to start doing that. What makes Pella a destination is its quaintness, is its beauty, is its heritage. And we've almost taken on the perspective that, well, we'll get back to those things at another time, or if someone complains enough, yeah, we'll bring it up to the council and talk about it. And we have to get away from that and get back to taking care of what we have.
Mr. DeWard, same question to you.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the standard answer would be we need to protect our citizens with our great police department, great fire department. We've taken on an ambulance service that wasn't something we asked for, but as a city we stepped up and did it. So those things are all critical. We have a library, we have a swimming pool, we have a sports park. All of that takes money, and that's why the most important thing for a community is its economic environment, because without that, we don't have the money to do any of those things. And so my priority is to continue to cultivate the economic environment that we have, because we have a fantastic one and we can do so much more than most communities can. And so we need to continue to cultivate that, because that is going to allow us to continue to grow, to continue to generate the tax revenues that it's going to take, all these projects people are talking about takes money. So we have to focus on economic activity and how we can continue to make it strong.
To our at-large candidates, Mr. Van Stryland, what are your top priorities if you're elected to the council?
Yes, we have many maintenance things that we definitely have to deal with. We have 100-year-old sewers that I thought we were going to repair some years in the past. Some of those things have gotten pushed back. Many people on the soccer fields have been complaining for years, and that's been pushed back. I used to teach driver ed, and I look at the streets of Grinnell and the recently repaired streets of Knoxville, and that pressed concrete. People don't trip over them. The bricks in our downtown streets. We have a lot of maintenance issues that we have neglected, and it's not just a minor issue. It could result in lawsuits. Our public services, have been mentioned. Parks and the ambulances. We need to, almost forgot, we need to preserve our Dutch heritage. Very important, and we do a decent job of that.
Ms. Sporer, same question to you.
Yes, thanks. I think a couple of things that were mentioned, things like ambulance, the maintenance, all of that is table stakes at a city council. That is our responsibility, and without question that will continue to be a priority. I think a comment was made earlier that you can't do everything at once. Same with maintenance. We know these things are planned out. There are plans in place to address some of these things. When I ran 4 years ago, there were kind of three things that I talked about, and that was housing, that was amenities, and that was being business friendly. And I believe those things are still important. We've seen great strides, and those are the things that are going to cultivate that economic environment that will create success long term in the future. So I think about housing. Again, if people are coming to Pella, we're bringing them in, there are jobs, they don't have a place to live. And so it's not that they don't have a dog park, and it's not that it's too expensive, it's also there's just not housing in general. So by having housing, by having the amenities that our citizens want and need, but then also by being business friendly to continue that economic development is critically important.
We're going to move on to our third question. We're going to start with our candidates in Ward 4 with Dr. Smith. What do you feel the role of the city is in promoting and leading economic development investment in Pella?
So the ward, I'm obviously Ward 4 here, so the role of the city is to employ the proper city employees. They're our profession, they're our front face, they're our ones that's going to be out there listening and being the front role of that. we as the council or potential council, we're there to help liaison with different departments, different interests, different groups, so that we can confer with the departments and the proper people to get things to move forward. So we're kind of the in-between, we're kind of the front run, and we're kind of behind too. So there's a lot of role, but we have to trust our city employees and our hired city professionals to do their job to help the most.
Mr. Hopkins, same question to you. What do you think the role of the city is in promoting and leading economic development?
The short answer is whatever it takes. If a city doesn't have a vibrant economy, it dies. All of us know of cities that have year after year after year dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. And if as a city and as a city council, we're not on the front end saying we've got to figure out how to grow our economy, then what we're saying is we're going to let our economy die. And with that, with no good economy, we're not going to be able to fix the streets. We're not going to be able to fix the sewers. We're not going to be able to do any of those things. So if we need to stimulate the economy through TIFs, through creative PUDs, whatever the case may be, that's what we need to do. If we need to remove roadblocks that stymie development, that stymie economic benefits, we need to remove roadblocks. So whatever it takes.
To our mayoral candidates, first to Mr. DeWard, what do you feel the role of the city is in promoting and leading economic development investment?
Well, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's all about collaboration. You know, if you look at some of the projects that have happened over the last 4 years in the city of Pella, we need private investment first, and then we can come along as a city and partner with that private investment to make things happen. We don't have a lot of tools in our belt, but I think we have to have close relationships with all of our businesses. We're blessed with some really big businesses and a whole lot of small businesses. So it's all about collaboration. It's all about partnership. We need to be willing, when we can help and how we help is very, very critical. And I think we have a ton of proof of that with some of the projects that have happened here over the last few years. If you look at the housing projects, the commercial projects that have happened, we as a city have been very aggressive in helping those projects happen, and they are going to be great for the city for the long term.
Mr. Bachhoven, same question to you.
So if you think back of what's made our community successful from an economic perspective, it's that we have some very large industries that are highly successful, and we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things we do without them. But most importantly, we have to start making it easy for small business to function in our community. If you look at some of these projects that are going on, they're great, but there's a lot of out-of-town contractors doing the work. And there's a lot of people in our community that can do that very work. But we get into this mindset of, well, they must be better because they're a bigger company. And we have some of the best small businesses in the world in this community, whether it's concrete layers or housing builders or whatever it is. And we need to start leveraging that to build more affordable homes that Ms. Spohr has talked about, and to attract those people to be here, to employ our local residents, to keep that money local. That's what drives economic development.
To our at-large candidates, beginning with Ms. Spohr, what do you feel the role of the city is in leading and promoting economic development?
I think it really is about being connected. Don mentioned that as well, but I believe working with businesses, big and small, working with the residents who are here, working with the people who want to come in, what can we do, how can we make it happen? Being able to be that liaison, but then also being able to work with the tools that we do have to help drive that is critically important.
Mr. Van Strylen, same question to you.
A lot of this has been said. Our big businesses and corporations have done a lot for this town, but I agree, we need to back our small businesses because they've done phenomenal things as well. Sometimes I feel we don't support them enough, and we need to really back them. I feel in some of the developments to the west, I look and they're from companies not from Pella, and When I was in college, I worked for a contractor, and I'm not impressed with the way some of those houses were built. We have builders in town that could build better. And I'm disappointed that we haven't employed local people. We haven't bought appliances from people in Pella. It's already been mentioned, contract. We need to employ Pella people. And that has disappointed me with some of these products. We also need to buy less online and shop from our local stores.
Finally, to our Ward 2 candidates, beginning with Mr. Butler, how do you view the city's role in promoting and leading economic development?
Well, I think the city's obligation is to provide a great place to live for people. Good streets, good schools, got a good fire department, good police department, and keeping the property tax low as possible. I know it's been said over and over and over again that the rate has stayed at $10.20 per thousand for the last 25 or 30 years, but the assessed values have covered the deck on that. So we just need to make Pella a good place to live. Pella, the word Pella means refuge, and Pella's motto is God is our refuge and strength. And we need to live on that Dutch heritage. We need to promote it. We need to guard it. And we need to do it. I know Butler doesn't sound like a Dutch name, but I have Dutch ancestors.
Mr. Banstra, same question to you.
Yeah, I think a lot of this has been said by many of the other candidates. I think particularly, the phrase "cultivate the economic environment" was used, and I think that is something that the city has done fairly well, quite well actually. The tools to do that are very limited. One that the state legislature has given us is TIF, and we've been very good at using TIF to get some of these projects off the ground and running. That is something that is often at risk of losing at the state level with the legislators, so that's something we have to be on guard on. I think the other thing I'd like to mention when you talk about partnerships is the group that put this on, PACE. I don't think you can find a better organization that can help meet the needs of all the business community, both large and small. And the city has supported PACE, and we've been well rewarded by doing that. And I think that is the type of thing we need to continue to do.
We're going to move on to the fourth question. We're going to start with our mayoral candidates, and we're going to start with Tony Bachhoven. The City of Pella recently approved a short-term 28E agreement to provide ambulance service to Lighton and several unincorporated townships through June 2024. A local referendum may be on the ballot in spring 2024 to adopt an essential services tax for EMS services. If the referendum were to fail, what would your plan be for continuing to provide EMS services to residents who live outside of the Pella corporate limits?
Yeah, that's easy for me. That is the number one priority. We have to provide safety, medical, police, all the fire. So if the referendum fails and the cost is put back on the community, we have to go back to the budget. We have to look at the things that we're planning to spend money on. We have to evaluate which, under Mayor Dobenecker and Mayor Mueller, was our top priority every year. We looked at the budget and said, what are the things that we really need to make sure we focus on and make sure that we can fund? And what are the things that if there's money left over that we can do to move our community forward? So if it doesn't pass, that should be the number one priority at budget season for the mayor and council.
Mr. Ward, same question to you.
Yeah, obviously this ambulance is a new thing for the city of Pella. No other city council or mayor has had to deal with an ambulance, so it's a new thing. And I think we, as a city, did a wonderful job of taking over a dying service. It was going to disappear. It's not like we went out there and looked to get it, so it was going to disappear. And so we are at the current time servicing the city of Pella and 5 rural townships around Pella. If the central essential services tax is passed, then there will be everybody sharing in the cost of that. If we continue to service all these outside of our community areas. Guess who's paying for that? The taxpayers of the city of Pella. And I've heard a lot of bloviating going on here about how we spend money. But I am going to defend the citizens of Pella and the taxpayers of Pella. Doesn't mean we're not going to service it. We are going to work as hard as we can to figure out a long-term solution to how the whole burden of servicing that area doesn't fall on just our taxpayers. Right now, that ambulance service is costing us $1 something per in our tax rate to run that ambulance service. We have got to make sure that through this process, the city of Pella taxpayers are protected from serving a whole wide area of people that aren't helping pay for it.
To our at-large candidates, Mr. Van Stryland, what would your plan be if the proposed referendum were to fail?
Well, we'll see how the referendum goes, but when a call comes in, an ambulance has to show up. And when a fire call comes in, the fire truck has to go out. And when an EMT needs to be there, it has to show up. And so we do need to provide community services. So we'll deal with it when we find out what happens in June of 2024.
Ms. Sporer, same question to you.
Yeah, I think it's no question ambulance services are absolutely necessary for anyone in Pella or in the surrounding community. But to that point, I already said it's table stakes. So we will make sure that ambulance services are available when someone needs them. However, it is also not the responsibility that the Pella citizens should have to carry the entire burden for those who are not paying taxes to the city of Pella. So what can we do to connect with these surrounding areas to drive a more cohesive plan to pay for this so that it is not just the citizens of Pella who are paying for it?
To our Ward 2 candidates, Mr. Banstra, what is your plan if the proposed referendum were to fail in spring '24?
Well, yeah, I mentioned this earlier that I've been heavily involved in that. First of all, we've got to try to make sure that it doesn't fail, and that's going to be a huge education on everybody. We're looking at I'm going to bore you with some details here. I'm glad I only got a minute. Chapter 422D allows for a county-wide referendum. It takes a 60% vote. It takes the supervisors declaring an essential services tax. It takes 2 votes of the supervisors for the resolution. And that's a pretty high hurdle to go through. If that tax would fail, there's another way that the legislator provides us, and that's Chapter 357F and 357G, and that would allow the city to form a separate EMS district that we could raise revenue that way, as well as the townships provide their own 357 district that they could raise taxes and then have a 28E agreement with us to better provide the funds the high cost of funds it takes to run an ambulance service.
Mr. Butler, same question to you.
Yes, well, Calvin's right next to it, so he's given a good answer. I agree with him on that point that we need to make sure it passes, which will require a lot of education, a lot of footwork in the field, and we just have to go with, we're going to pass it. If it doesn't pass, there are alternatives. We cannot not provide a service. We have to take care of our fellow citizens, even if they live out of our taxing district, and have sympathy for that problem. But we'll get it straightened out. I really think the citizens of Marion County are smart enough to understand that it costs a lot of money to run an ambulance. The reimbursements aren't good enough to cover everything, so taxpayers are going to have to step up and help pay for it. Although I hate to raise taxes, sorry.
Sorry, sir. To our Ward 4 candidates, Mr. Hopkins, if that proposed referendum were to fail, what's your plan?
Yeah, so put a different way, the question is, should the taxpayers of Pella be responsible for covering the expense of people who aren't in our city limits, the other townships? That's a tough question to answer. Nobody wants to say no, and people who don't want their taxes to go up they don't want to say yes. So it's going to take some, if it doesn't pass, It's going to take some collaboration. It's going to take some work. It's going to take getting a lot of people in the same room and figure it out, because it could put different entities at odds with each other unless we actually come together and figure out a solution.
Dr. Smith, same question to you.
So this is where I feel a little bit of disadvantage. There's a lot of people up here that have far more experience in this type of politics and being on a board of this caliber. But I can definitely say, even though I don't know all the details and can't quote different policy on it, we do have to take care of people. I mean, if someone is injured, someone needs medical help, we have to be there for them. When it comes to paying taxes for that or figuring out a different way, policies or anything, that is our job. We need to help them. But it sounds like we're on the right path. It sounds like it should go. Again, I don't know all the details to this one, but it would be something I think that we should look very seriously at.
Okay, we're going to go to our next question, which was submitted from an audience member. We're going to start with our at-large candidates with Liz Ford. What is one thing you are most proud to have supported that has attracted people to this community?
That's a good question. There's just been so much good stuff that's happened. I think about some of the new businesses. I think about the new housing. I know I've said it multiple times, but even through work, like bringing groups of people out to Smash Park or Chick-fil-A, it's fantastic. But also the small businesses that are thriving as well. We have so many great places in this community to walk through. You can walk around town and shop constantly to a fault, actually. And then, but I also think too, the housing that has happened, like there are places and spaces, and just seeing this momentum is just wildly exciting for me.
Mr. Van Strylen, same question to you.
Well, I've traveled to about 50 countries and a lot of cities, and Pella is a good place to live. As I said, I plan to live here 2 years. One thing that really impresses me in this town is we have good water. And when I was in council last time, we put in the reverse osmosis water system. We built a new Jordan well. That was a biggie, because I spent quite a bit of time in Knoxville. Their water doesn't taste like our water, and that's true of quite a few other towns. Tulip time, I probably had, I don't know if I've done this, but I've probably had a dozen people, mostly from the Netherlands, but from other places in Europe, and just riding my antique Harley in the Tulip time parade for probably close to like 20 years. I've had a lot of fun doing that. Pushing for the historical districts, a few.
To our Ward 2 candidates, Mr. Butler, what is one thing that you are most proud to have supported that has attracted people to our community?
Well, I'm a little bit at a disadvantage, having only been here 2.5 years, but we did buy a house on Franklin Street. It's much bigger than we need. We've got 2 guest bedrooms. We've had about 40 visitors, overnight visitors, some of them staying 2-3 nights, and they have all marveled at Pella. The last set of visitors we had here, we took them down to the windmill, where I'm a volunteer and run the windmill, and they commented that the museum, as we went through the museum, was so clean and neat and tidy. And I said, well, it's well taken care of. The other thing we did before we moved to town is we had business cards made up with our name and phone number and email addresses on them. And you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but there's tulips on it. And I have handed these out to people that I've met at random here and there in the airports and everywhere, and invited them to come to Pella.
Mr. Banstra, same question to you.
Yeah, I guess I'll say one, and as Liz says, there's a lot we can talk about. I'm going to point out one. I think I've been very proud to be part of getting the establishment of Lely here. It's amazing to think that a town of 10,000 can be the North American headquarters of a major European country. I think that's amazing for that. That has drawn a lot of people to Pella. I've been fortunate to be able to interact with several of the folks that have come there, and My Dutch may not be as good as Harold, maar ik kan een beetje spreken, so I was able to visit with them, and it's amazing how they have enjoyed Pella as well, to quote some of what Harold has said too, when you have visitors come. I think when you can have something that when visitors come and they leave with a good feeling that they've come to a quality place, that is something I think we all can be proud of.
To our Ward 4 candidates, Dr. Smith, what is one thing that you're most proud to have supported that has attracted people to this community?
So I can tell you, there's so many things that we support. The churches we support that brings people to this community, the safe environments that we bring to this community, the schools. I mean, there's so many things that when people come to our community, it stands out to them. Your kids can run down the streets. They don't have to worry about anything. Kids can be kids. That's something in a lot of towns that we can't talk about. But we can talk about, you know, the wonderful businesses we have, the festivals that we have. This town has so many wonderful things that we can't even describe. We're so fortunate. So when people leave this town from a vacation or a trip, there's just so many things they talk about and are proud about that what we have and we take for granted. So it is a wonderful place to be.
Mr. Hopkins, same question to you.
I'm going to say something that I'm proud of that 4 years ago, sitting up here, I would have bet against. Through the persistent and strong efforts of the Community Center, Friends of the Pella Community Center Committee, they twisted my arm enough that I saw the light to invest in this building that we're in right here. So I got to be part of the team that put together a plan on how to spend some money to invest to keep this gem still working in the future. So I'm actually, surprisingly, I'm pretty proud of that from where I was 4 years ago.
To our mayoral candidates, Mr. DeWard, what is one thing you're most proud of to have supported that has attracted people to this community?
Well, first of all, whoever asked this question, that's a great question. As we've talked about, we've had so many projects that have happened in the last 4 years to be proud of, but this is so easy for me. The thing I am most proud of is how this community navigated COVID. There's been a few questions about our small businesses. The City of Pella and PACE Alliance partnered together for a promotional Pella Bucks thing to help people shop locally during COVID. Do you know that in the year 2020, when most of the United States of America and the world were suffering economic calamity like we haven't seen, our sales tax revenue that year actually increased? That says a whole lot about this community, and the City of Pella was an integral part of helping make that happen. I got so many emails during that time period saying, close everything down, cut the tulips down, from a wide range of things, and we navigated that situation incredibly well.
Mr. Bachhoven, same question to you.
Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of the Pella Fiber project. It was something that was vitally important to Central College as a recruitment tool during the COVID era. It was something that was vitally important to both of our largest industries in town so that they could provide remote work from home opportunities for their employees, and just what it's done for the rest of our community to have that opportunity to have high-speed internet, fiber internet to your home, and bringing the phone and the television all into one utility. It's been a great revenue source for the city, and so long-term, I'm really happy about how that project has turned out.
All right, we're going to take our 2 to 3 minute break so you can stretch your legs, use the restrooms, and then we'll come back and hear some more from our candidates. I think we're just about ready to resume, so if we could take our seats, that'd be wonderful.
I think there were a lot, I thought there were a lot more. I'm updated. It's 4 years ago. I can't.
They're not interested in what we're saying.
No, no.
Skip it.
Restart it pretty well.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to jump right back into our questions. We're going to start with our candidates in Ward 2 with Calvin Banstra for this question. Assuming the SCRAA will not construct a new regional airport, what is your plan for the Pella Municipal Airport moving forward?
Yes, that's been a project that has been long in process. If the SCRAA doesn't go forward, there's been a lot of delayed projects at the local airport, and probably wisely so when it was looked at that they were going to put massive amounts of money in the regional airport. So we're in process of getting a plan in place now. There's a term that the FAA has for looking over what the future improvements have to be. So that's in process right now. Once that is done, we as a city council will take a look at those and prioritize what has to be done with another runway, alternate or a runway next to it, also going to be one of the big features of that. So I think that's going to be the way we're going to end up going on that.
Mr. Butler, the same question to you about the Pella Municipal Airport.
Well, being new to the area, I know that the airport here between Oskaloosa and Pella has been ditched, and that's so I don't have a real handle on what's going to have to happen. I mean, I'll confess ignorance on that one. I know that if the FAA gets involved and they start giving us directions, that the city council would have to consider how they're going to meet those requirements and pay for them. And so that's about the size of where I stand on that. And it's important to have a nice airport. I heard from a guy today he said it is a nice airport now for light airplanes. And I know Pella Corporation has bought planes with bigger wings, bigger wing area, which makes it easier for them to take off on the constraints they have now, but that won't last forever. So there'll be improvements coming, and we need to pave that road out there, I think. Excuse me.
To our Ward 4 candidates, Mr. Hopkins, assuming the SCRAA will not construct a new regional airport, what is your plan for the Pella Municipal Airport moving forward?
Well, the bottom line is we need to get airplanes in and out of our community. We've got, I think Shane at the airport said that the Pella Airport is it's the busiest airport of our size in the state. You can fact check that. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure I would say that. And with that being the case, we have to invest in it. If the regional airport isn't going to happen, we're going to have to invest in our local airport because our businesses depend on it.
Dr. Smith, same question to you.
So when it comes to the airport, I don't have a whole lot of background information. I can tell, I know it's one of the busier airports living by where they take off every morning and evening. I do hear them quite frequently. We enjoy watching them, but when it comes to what can we or can we not do, I'm sitting in a seat right now that I don't have enough information to give a real good, truthful answer of how I would. We do need an airport. We utilize the airport. I know the businesses utilize it, so it's something we do need to look at very seriously, but also understand what's the benefit for rewards.
To our mayoral candidates, to Mr. Bachhoven first, what is your plan for the Pella Municipal Airport moving forward?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I've met with Shane and members of his board a few times already, and You know, the great thing is that Helicorp has reinvested in different planes that allow them to fly off the length of runway that we have. They have a great list of things that need to happen out there. It's our turn as the city to start making that a priority now that the writing is pretty much on the wall for the regional airport. It's time to make a priority of the airport like we would any other department within the community and start to enhance it. It's a vital tool that we offer in our community. Dave's right, I believe it is probably one of the busiest airports in the state. We have the best FBO in the state. Shane is highly sought after, and so we need to do what we can to provide a safe airport and provide him the tools he needs to continue to run that airport, because it delivers a lot of money to this community.
Mr. DeWard, same question to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to answer this question. This, obviously, the Pella, or the joint airport over in Oskaloosa predates most of us here by a long ways. I'm sure it was a great project when it was first initially decided to move forward with. Unfortunately, the partnership that was created had one member of it that decided they didn't want to be a member of it anymore. So what we have to do first, obviously, there's been a Supreme Court ruling that came down not in favor of the cities, but it's not just so easy to say we're going to scrap it and be done. There's a significant number of acres of land that have already been purchased by the SCRAA, and so we have to have discussions and figure out between the city of Oskaloosa and the city of Pella what to do. But as far as our current airport, yes, we need to have a plan moving forward if there's not going to be a second airport. The FAA will help provide that for us, and then we have to start attacking those needs as we can moving forward.
To our at-large candidates, Mr. Van Stryland, what is your plan for the Pella Municipal Airport moving forward?
Well, it appears that SCRA is dead, and we do have to keep Shane happy because he's done an amazing job for us. And Vermeer and Pellicorp have invested in new craft. It's unfortunate that some of the larger aircraft are not able to land there, but we do have to make improvements. Concrete, I don't know, I don't have as many details as Tony has, but we have to get our customers to land there. If we get people landing there, it would be a huge benefit to our corporations. We don't want to have to, there probably will be some planes that will have to land in Newton. And it would be advantage to our stores and businesses here if they could land. So hopefully most of them at least can. We do have to put some money into it. Personally, I don't think SCRA is going to happen.
Ms. Borer, same question to you.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I believe, too, that if the SCRAA is not going to move forward, which it is looking like that is becoming less of an option, we must invest in the airport that we have in Pella. It's critical for big businesses. It's critical for little businesses. A lot of tourism comes in through that. We have a list that, we've been talking to the airport committee as well. We have the list of things that they want to do. We recognize the need for them. There's no question in that. And I think it's really about the funding. What will the FAA be willing to partner with us in that, and how do we do that in the best way possible?
We'll move on to our next question. We're going to begin with the candidates in Ward 4. We'll start with Ryle Smith. With over $15 million in private commitments and $17 million in city funding, the proposed rec center is still in need of additional funding. If elected, what other funding sources would you encourage the city to pursue to fund the project? If not enough funding is secured, what should the city do in regard to advancing the project forward?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I have a son. This has been a topic at our house a lot. We need a rec center, we really do. But I don't know if we'll get the funding and if we'll get it raised in time or get it anywhere. I know we've got, $15 million pledged over the next, 3 to 5 years. We're trying to get resources from Marion County. This would be great. I would love to see a gigantic, beautiful building come in. I think we need to have a really do need it, but let's scale it back a little bit, make it usable, so we can have tournaments, we can do everything, and maybe make it a little less glamorous. And that way we don't have to seek out additional funding and to find some revenue sources.
Mr. Hopkins, same question to you.
Yeah, so we actually just discussed this in policy and planning a couple nights ago. So for starters, we're still working to see what there's available in discussions, even with the county yet, some other governmental funding, and then whatever that dollar amount comes out to, then we're gonna look at how do we need to phase this. How do we need to have alternates? How do we need to scale back and make it still happen without being a burden?
We'll move to the mayoral candidates. Mr. DeWard, how would you approach funding for the rec center and moving forward?
Well, as we've said, we have $15 million pledged privately. We've discussed using some of our local option sales tax bond proceeds or our proceeds to pay off a bond. And someone said earlier about a project needing to be 50-50, and I think we're very close to that, where it's private money with the bond money. Obviously, we're disappointed in Marion County not approving money to help us yet. There's several other funding opportunities. We have talked to Miller Meek's office, who has indicated that they will support the road part of that project. Vision Iowa grant is still out there. I guess it's called something else now, but Vision Iowa grant. But we will continue to fundraise, and I believe we can get to a 50-50 split with the fundraising and the bond issue to pay for it. And so we will continue to work with, I've spent a lot of time on this project, and I'm very excited about it. It would be a great amenity for our community.
Mr. Bachhoven, same question to you.
Yeah, first things first is people need to vote on it. They need to decide whether we want it as a community. Doing projects in a funnel because you have outstanding support is not necessarily the right reason to do it. So I think the first thing is the community needs to vote. And if the community decides we want a rec center, then that's the direction we need to go. It's a great project. It's just a matter of how we get there. There's a definite difference between pledges and cash in the bank. And I think the better question that the citizens should be asking is, how much real cash do you have? And get past that part first, because as I mentioned earlier, the 50-50 partnership is the way to go. And if you can't do it right away, then if there's such great support for the project, then a phased approach will be just fine with our partners.
To our at-large candidates, beginning with Ms. Sporer, how do you approach the funding questions surrounding the rec center?
Yeah, I think there's been great strides in getting a significant amount of the funding. I believe that there are additional revenue streams that we are pursuing. They have been mentioned already up here, so I won't get into that. As Dave mentioned too, on Tuesday night we did look at alternatives, at doing it in a scalable, sustainable way. So we'll get the numbers to understand what we can do. What will this actually cost at a smaller scale, at our big scale? We already took our big dream off the table. That was $92 million, and that was beautiful. But so we've already cut down a little. We'll continue to cut down. We'll do what we can to make sure that it's what the community needs, but it also will be funded. Our mayor has said, and I'm committed to this as well, we will not build something that we can't pay for, and that maintains for this too.
Mr. Van Strylen, same question to you.
Tough thing is, the bids aren't in yet. And a lot of people have asked me, how come there was no referendum, or how come there wasn't even a survey? That's the question I've been asked quite a bit. Again, we don't know what the end price is. Unfortunately, right now, we do live in rather financially troubled times. Inflation's at a 40-year high. Groceries are up 20%. I didn't realize how strong I was, how easy it was for me to carry $100 worth of groceries to my car. Gasoline's up, I think, 62.5%. I guess this is one thing I'm concerned about. Amenities are great. Quality of life is great. But It would be nice to have that gorgeous building there, and to make sure we're not financially strapped, and to make sure that our debt isn't going to skyrocket. So that's my big concern. It'd be great to have that, and I know I've heard a lot of support, but we have to pay for it.
To our Ward 2 candidates, first to Mr. Butler, what would your approach be to the funding questions surrounding the rec center?
Well, thank you for asking. I'm a CPA, and I've been concerned about this project now for well over a year or two, whenever it started. I've had a hard time getting operational cash flow statement out, and I think we need to look at two things. We need to look at how much money is it going to take and what's it going to cost us just to get the building up. The second thing, which is just as important because it'll go on forever, is how much is it going to cost us to run the place. And if the people in town, we need to do a market survey and find out how many people would be willing to support it, not just with their, yeah, I like it, it's a great idea, but with their money, and then get an idea what it's going to cost us to operate the thing, then we're ready. But until then, we need to do a cash flow on the construction, and because we're going to front a lot of the money, we're not getting the $15 million today, we're getting it over a 5-year period, but we're going to spend it in the next 2 years.
Mr. Banstra, same question to you.
Yes, for one thing, it's probably not feasible to phase it in with just cash on hand. There's going to have to be some borrowings, and I look at very similar if somebody buys a farm or somebody buys a house. Very rarely do you have cash on hand to do the whole thing when you're investing in the future. The question is what's going to be the relationship with that. Somebody mentioned too that we don't have the bids yet, and that's going to be very, very key for what we do. I think the City Council made a pretty wise decision to have a base bid and an alternate bid so that we can see what we can get something for that will be big enough to service particularly with the aquatic competition pool, which will add a lot to the schools here and Central University. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind if we get that. I wish there would be more basketball courts under that when I talk to the Pella Hoops folks, but I think if we can build it so that we can add on later, that's the way to go. But all will be known when we get the bids.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next question, which is another audience question, and we're going to start with our mayoral candidates with Mr. Bachhoven. How will you support businesses that lie outside our downtown or manufacturers?
Yeah, so that's a great comment. There's a lot of legacy businesses in our town that don't necessarily reside in the central business district. That doesn't make them less important. I think it is one of those things that as we sell our community, we need to sell our entire community. Pella isn't just the downtown, though we have one of the best in the state, in the country, but we have to continue to grow our community, drive businesses across our community, and then encourage people to go out and seek those businesses and seek those places. Because, you know, if you think about the south side of our town, there's a lot of culture in the south side of Pella. That's where a lot of this community started, was in the south side of our town. And so it's a different part of our town, and I think that those small businesses that reside out there are just as important as the larger businesses that may reside downtown.
Mr. DeWard, the same question to you.
Well, the question is, how are we going to support them? We're going to support them by helping create an economic environment so that they all can flourish. I happen to have 2 children that have businesses in this community. One of them owns the Culver store, one of them owns the Central Tire store. Both of those businesses are flourishing because of the economic environment we have in Pella. They are busy, they are sometimes they can't keep up with the amount of business they have, and it's because of the economic environment we have. I can't stress that enough. And as a city, our responsibility is to do what we can to help that economic environment continue to thrive by growing our community. And we do that partnering with big and small businesses, working with all of the businesses, supporting an institution like PACE, like Visit Pella. All of those things make a huge difference for small businesses in our community.
To our at-large candidates, Mr. Van Stryland, how will you support businesses that lie outside our downtown or manufacturers in town?
We have to be very supportive of them. Just because they're not big businesses or right downtown doesn't mean that they are not significant. I think maybe sometimes we have given TIFs to some businesses who were not around, and we have not supported those little guys. Now, TIFs are great. However, TIFs also do take some money from our local school systems. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of that. I think as citizens, this isn't city council, but I think we need to be encouraged to eat in town, again, shop in town, and again, don't go right to your computers and buy everything online. I know it's difficult sometimes. We have we had clothing stores that aren't around anymore. And maybe I'm not thinking clearly now, but there are other businesses that have disappeared.
Ms. Boer, same question to you.
Yeah, I think, you know, as a council, we want to partner with all businesses. You know, a business succeeding in our community, whether it's downtown or outside of the downtown, is critically important. I think, you know, Don had mentioned about the economic environment that we have, but I think one additional thing that I'd like to add is looking at the comprehensive plan that's been in place. So it's kind of the map of where is our city going to grow and how is it going to do that. And we as a council have recently been looking at that and investing in ways to continue to build out that plan. Well, what that's doing is that it's expanding our footprint, and it's going to continue to drive homes and traffic and other businesses out to where some of these businesses are. So really, again, it's kind of about growing the entire footprint, which ultimately will then drive business to all the places in Pella, which is the goal, right?
To our Ward 2 candidates, Mr. Vanstra, how will you support businesses that lie outside our downtown or manufacturers?
Yeah, and just a little bit of clarification or addition onto what Harold said about the TIFs. The schools really don't lose money on the TIFs. They still get the money on the base raw land that's there. What the city gets is anything that's built on that. So that, I think that's important, a way to keep supporting TIFs that way. Once the TIF is paid off, then it gets divided between the schools and the county, which they don't have for the TIF period. Secondly, I think we have worked good on the arterial parts of town. I look at Laley, again, we worked with a partnership with Mahaska County on getting a RISE grant on that county line road that goes there. I think that shows that, and I think too, when we're looking at the extension of University, there's going to be an additional chance for development out there, which will help anything that gets out on the east side of town. And I think keeping those main transportation arteries good and growing with traffic lights, turn lanes, those kind of things are going to be a big benefit to the businesses outside the downtown.
Mr. Butler, the same question to you.
Well, I think Pella's done a fairly good job of developing the Oskaloosa corridor, and then just at the last city council meeting, they changed the zoning on some property out there on the east side. And I think that's a key, is to make it easier to get the zoning changes done, to accommodate people. If there's a spot that doesn't quite fit, let's work to make it fit. And we do need to let these outside, or the businesses outside the central district, make themselves better known. Maybe they need more signage or just more contact with the people in Pella somehow. And so doing that, it's advertising, and then again, if we spend money on repairs, that'll take a lot of small businesses can do repair work.
To our Ward 4 candidates, Mr. Hopkins, how will you support businesses that lie outside our downtown or manufacturers?
Well, I'll echo what Don said. Nothing supports businesses like a paying customer.
Yeah.
And so anything that we do as a city, anything that we do as a council that brings in more paying customers, that supports our economic vibrancy, it's good for all businesses. It's good for the downtown businesses, it's good for the businesses in the corridor, it's good for the businesses in the periphery of our city. So there's nothing better that we can do than just simply support the economic vibrancy that we already have, and it's growing.
Dr. Smith, same question to you about how you would support businesses that lie outside our downtown.
Well, this one affects me really personally because I do have 2 businesses that are outside of downtown. And one of the major reasons I'm sitting up here today is for that purpose. We have not been heard well enough over the years. Someone had sent, I didn't have to, said, signage. I'm not allowed to use signing yet. So I've been asking for a sign for years. That's just a basic operation the city council should have granted me that a long time ago. So I do feel very passionate about this. The council can do a lot more to help those businesses. We all are equal. We all want the best for this community. And simple things that mean a lot for a local business. A sign, maybe a turning sign, a sewer allowed would be a great starting part for a lot of us business owners. So yes, I'm quite passionate about this. This is why I'm up here, and I could go on a long time on this subject, but I will let that one go.
Okay, we'll go on to our next question. We'll begin with our at-large candidates with Liz Ford. Many people who work in Pella live in areas surrounding the city that do not have access to reliable, high-speed broadband internet service. As the build-out of Pella Fiber finishes, would you support extending Pella Fiber to unincorporated areas outside the corporate limits of Pella? And if so, how would you propose to finance the expansion?
Good question. Yes, I would absolutely support that. Obviously, right now we're looking at, if anyone's willing to annex, then we're happy to talk about a fiber installation, obviously. In the event that we get to a point that we want to go further out, that annexation is obviously not a viable solution. I think we just have to look at our business plan, right? It's a revenue generating function of the city, so no different than any other business plan. We would look at a pro forma and try to understand what are the costs, what do we need to do, what would we charge, et cetera.
Mr. Van Strylen, the same question to you about Pella Fiber.
I think Liz sort of hit the nail on the head with the annexation. We were dealing with the same thing with the paving the road out to St. Mary's Catholic Church. But I think if that were the case, I think Pella Fiber certainly would be all in on it. And I'm not sure, they wouldn't go extremely far, I don't think. I'm not sure on, I get these Boss Ridge and Boss Prairie. It's the one to the left of anyway, past the church out there. I guess I would be in favor of it, and I suppose the cost could be an issue there too, and how many people want to hook up, because one family or 15 is going to make a huge difference on what the money coming in.
To our Ward 2 candidates, first to Mr. Butler, would you support extending Pella Fiber to unincorporated areas outside the corporate limits? And if so, how would you propose financing the expansion?
Well, there again, it depends on volume and cost. And I'm thinking here that, this technology keeps improving, that at some point they might be able to directionally broadcast a Wi-Fi signal from a tower and cover a bigger area without having to wire it all up. I don't know. I mean, my computers run across the room on Wi-Fi, and if you can get high enough in the air and have a direct look at the customer's antenna, you might be able to do it with Wi-Fi and not have to run a cable. The technology will keep improving. So that question is really hard to answer. It's pretty what do I want to say? Ethereal is the word. It's in the Ethernet. Who knows what can be done? But it's got to pay for itself, I'd say.
Mr. Banstra, the same question to you.
Yeah, as John says, this world is changing, but in the world we know now, I think our first obligation first is to obviously get everybody hooked up who wants to within the city limits. If there are communities outside the city limits, and that can be the carrot for annexation when we have the other services that might appeal to them, like sewer service versus septic tanks, those kind of things. I think that's got to be our first way we go. If we decide as a community to go beyond the city limits without annexation, I think we have to look at something that we have the fees that go to those users be higher than what the city limits are, fees are that. We do that in several other areas where we provide services outside the city limits, and I think if we can follow that same plan, if we decide to go, that would make the most sense.
To our Ward 4 candidates, first to Dr. Smith, would you support extending Pella Fiber to unincorporated areas outside the corporate limits of Pella, and how would you propose to finance the expansion if you support it?
So basically, I'm repeating a lot of people have said already. It sounds like it's a wonderful thing that we should be looking into in the future. We do need to secure Pella first. Pella Fiber has proven itself to be a very capable and a good service. We've hooked into it as well. As everything says, you have to have that business plan. You've got to have that cost and benefit. You can't just go and do a section and just not have it come back to make it feasible. So it comes down to the fiscal responsibility and is it worth our time to do it. But I think it is going that direction. Technology needs it. So.
Mr. Hopkins, same question to you.
Yeah, this is a similar but less critical, perhaps, question as the ambulance service. So this is something who wouldn't want fiber, who wouldn't want high-speed internet, especially if I got the benefits of living in city limits without actually living in city limits and having a higher tax rate, et cetera. So it's for me, it's simply a business decision. Does it make good business sense for the city to do it? Does it make good business sense to extend that into our community? How's it going to work? How's it going to pay?
To our mayoral candidates, first to Mr. DeWard. Do you support extending Pella Fiber to the unincorporated areas outside the corporate limits of Pella?
Well, as has been mentioned, our commitment is to the citizens of Pella because that's who voted to start this utility. We've incurred $20 million worth of debt to install this utility. It's going to be a great utility for the city of Pella. The original financial model said we needed 2,000 customers for it to pay for itself. We're up over 2,500 customers, so we know it's going to be a profitable utility for the city of Pella, much like our electric and our other utilities are. We have a great track record with utilities. So yes, I would totally be in favor of extending it, but only if it makes financial sense. Like John, I'm a CPA, and it doesn't take a whole lot of calculation to figure out what's it going to cost, what's our potential revenue. Then you make a decision about whether you extend it beyond the city limits.
Mr. Bachhoven, the same question to you.
This might be the only question that we all at this table agree on, actually. I think Karen mentioned it at the council meeting Tuesday night. It's an investment. And if it makes sense to do it and financially we can do that, then yes, we should expand it. You know, when we planned Pella Fiber, there was lots of discussion about that. What happens after the initial build is done? And lucky for us, there was a lot of foresight in the council that put this together, working with FAR Technologies to build this system that it's already in a position where expanding it won't be a great hill to climb. So I think if it makes financial sense, there's enough customers that can support it, then we should do it.
Move on to our next question. We're going to start with our Ward 2 candidates with Calvin Banstra. The City of Pella last updated its comprehensive plan in 2014 and has begun discussions regarding its next update. Knowing that the comprehensive plan is a long-range planning document, what does the City of Pella look like 20 years from now?
That's kind of like John talking about the Ethernet, and so that one of the things that I think it's going to look like, and I'm going to answer it kind of vaguely, due to the process. One of the processes for a comprehensive plan is gathering the input from the citizens. And I looked what was done the last time. I don't know if any of you were on that at that time, but it was a tremendous amount of work done, a tremendous amount of collaboration. And the things that came out of that were primarily housing was one of the big ones, and also some eating and drinking venues. That was the other big thing that came from that. It's hard for me to think that housing won't be another big one that's coming out. What else might be there, who knows?
Mr. Butler, same question to you about what the city of Pella looks like 20 years from now.
I won't be here. So, but beyond that, I think what we have here, and it's been mentioned before, we have this historical Dutch heritage. People move to Pella because it already has enough amenities. They come to escape and seek a refuge from the hurly-burly of big cities. And I tell you, I've lived in a couple of big cities, and this is sweet. This is a sweet spot. So we want to defend that. We do want to engage as many people as possible to get their vision of it. I think that's the right way to go, because they're going to pay for it. And so we need to just keep pushing forward, but very carefully, because what we have here is what the attraction is. It's a small town with a lot of character, and we don't want to lose that character.
To our Ward 4 candidates, first to Mr. Hopkins. What do you believe the city of Pella looks like 20 years from now?
So, I have a confession to make. I'm somewhat of a dreamer. So, whenever somebody says 20 years from now, my mind starts spinning. I'm thinking about all of the possibilities. But if I were to boil it down, it would look like something that the city has as many opportunities for as many people as possible. So wherever the city lacks right now, that we would add it. Wherever the city lacks in amenities, wherever the city lacks in people, wherever the city lacks in whatever access, that it would basically continue to grow in an ever-widening circle of opportunity for as many people as possible.
Dr. Smith, same question to you.
I like the idea of what could it be in 20 years. I think a lot of people come here because of this town, the historic part of the town, the new part of town. That's something that we got to keep out. There is a definite feel, there's a reason we come to this community, and that's going to be the hardest part, to keep this community growing, because development needs to happen. So to keep Pella the unique, quaint, awesome town that we all chose to move here for, that's going to take a lot of consideration. Housing is a huge thing. We need affordable housing, so we need to get people, we need to get workers, so we need to address a lot of issues. But to keep our town what we came here for and what we want to keep it. 20 years, that's a good question, because we'll be just a little rare. Some of us will have our kids coming back then, so we got to make it a place that they want to come back to.
To our mayoral candidates, first to Mr. Bachhoven. Knowing that the comprehensive plan is coming up for an update, what do you believe the city of Pella looks like 20 years from now?
Yeah, it's first things first is it's going to take a tremendous amount of work again and city input. This is a project that everybody should get excited about, because it's your chance to dream big, and if all things are equal and you can have whatever you want, this is the time to put it together in a plan. And then the city is then tasked with growing our community and using that as a roadmap. It's not necessarily a guarantee. Just because a road's in a comprehensive plan for 20 years doesn't mean that road's going there. But we need to be proud of who we are as a community. I lost an election by 7 votes because I didn't subscribe to brew pubs and dog parks. But I did subscribe to the fact that we are a Christian Reformed Dutch heritage community, and I'm so proud of that. And I hope that when I leave office, that in 20 years, the people that step up here next are equally as proud of who we are as a community, because that's why people move to Pella.
Mr. DeWard, same question to you.
Well, first I would say that I think I see us still having a tulip time. We would be foolish to ever end tulip time. And I, like John, I'm 67 years old, had heart surgery a year ago, so I'm probably not going to be here in 20 years. But, so we will hold on to our heritage. It's part of us, it's ingrained in the fabric of this community, and so that's not going to go anywhere. I tell people all the time, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to whoever 87 or 88 years ago decided to start a tulip time. They could have had no idea what it would mean this many years later to a community. But it is huge to our community from an economic standpoint. The other thing is the decisions that we make now as a council, the investment that we make now are going to determine what we are 20 years from now. We have to maintain long-term perspective. We cannot manage by crises here, there, and everywhere. We've got to have long-term plans. And so the investments we make now are going to determine what the city's going to look like 20 years from now. And I'm bullish on what Pella will look like 20 years from now, because we'll make some wise decisions and wise investments.
To our at-large candidates, first to Mr. Van Stryland. What does Pella look like 20 years from now?
Wow. This comprehensive plan is going to require a lot of study, looking into how much growth. I've lived in Denver, I've lived in Seattle, I've lived in the Ruhr Valley of Germany, and I don't want Pella to be a Ruhr Valley, a city that runs for 20 million people. I don't want Pella to lose its Dutch heritage and its values. Doesn't mean everybody has to be Dutch, obviously, and we've seen a lot of changes that since I moved here. But I do want Pella to remain wholesome, and I do want Pella to remain a good place to live, a wholesome place to live, and affordable place to live. Sometimes I hear kids in Knoxville say, "Oh, are you rich? You live in Pella." My folks live in Pella. I mean, my folks live in Knoxville. My folks work in Pella, but they can't afford to live in Pella. I'm disappointed to hear that. And I've heard that from Knoxville students, disappointed to hear that. So we do want to live in a place where people can afford to live.
Ms. Borer, same question to you.
Yeah. I was in the Netherlands earlier this year, and I've been a couple of times, and every time I'm there, I'm just blown away by what the Dutch have done in the Netherlands to survive there, right? The canals, the windmills, they have made land, they've been pragmatic in all of their approaches. And I think that, that innovation, that ability to look forward, to think to the future, and to work together has created just an unbelievable country that we should be proud to have our heritage come from. So anyway, as I think about what the comprehensive plan looks like, I believe no different that same innovative spirit that as our community can come together, how do we look at what are the needs that are there? What are the wants that are there? How can we effectively grow and make the changes that we need to and do it in a sustainable, scalable way?
We're going to go to our final question of the evening. We're going to start with the candidates in Ward 4, starting with Ryle Smith. As the city of Pella continues to grow and the city builds new structures, how are we going to maintain our current properties?
Well, we definitely want the city to grow. That is the biggest thing that we are arguing all of here that we agree with. Our city needs to grow, and our structures, our properties, I mean, we all have to pay our property taxes. That's part of maintaining. We have to be our part of the resident, small business, large businesses. When you say structures, I start thinking infrastructure, I start thinking everything else, but I don't know the best way to put it yet, besides, we all have to pay our fair share, we do our taxes, we maintain, we keep our heritage, and we try to be the best we can be.
Mr. Hopkins, same question to you.
Yeah, clarifying question. So current properties?
Correct.
And is that?
Example.
Our city properties?
The examples provided, soccer fields, Tulip Tower, Central Park, Fountain, Community Center, City Hall, Public Works.
Yeah. So how will we maintain our current properties? Well, we've had several discussions already tonight here, with thoughtful planning, strategic management of our funds, prioritizing what we want to invest in this year, what we want to invest in next year, and so on down the road. And then as the economic vibrancy continues, we're going to be able to do that.
To our mayoral candidates, to Mr. DeWard, as we continue to grow here in the city of Pella and build new structures, how are we going to maintain our current properties and facilities?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that the city of Pella, we have a whole lot of different revenue streams. So some of these, when we talk about projects, sometimes building new ones, there's a different revenue stream for that than there is to maintain a facility for the most part. And so we build in the budget every year maintaining our facilities. For instance, we've committed $5.5 million to remodel this particular property, to fix it up, bring it back to usable, so it can be used better. It needs a bunch of work on the inside. We were given a building down at the end of Main Street that we are going to remodel and be able to use that. So we're going to continue to have needs. And again, we spend money, maintenance is spending money. Building things new, that's investing money. And there's somewhat of a big difference. And we have to take the revenue streams that we have and use them to the best of our ability.
Mr. Bachhoven, same question to you.
Yeah, there are several different revenue streams, and one of the things that we have to focus on is that we can't continue to rob our departments of their budgets to fund other new projects, because that's where the repairs come from. That's who maintains the parks and the ballparks and things like that. But the last couple of years, we've gotten really good at robbing the departments to fund other projects because the money's not there. So I think you have to step back and you have to look at some of the resources you have, like the soccer field and some of those things that you mentioned, and those need to become a priority. Now, if they've outlived their lifespan, that's a different story. But that's not really what I believe this question is we have a lot of things that have not outlived their lifespan that we've neglected because we've taken the funding for maintaining those amenities and put it in other places.
To our at-large candidates, first to Ms. Spohr.
Yeah, I was talking about our Dutch heritage in my last answer, but I think there's another piece to our Dutch heritage, and that's Dutch clean, right? Certainly something I grew up with and something I think our city takes pride in. I think that there are standards that exist, and I think that those are one of the differentiators of our community. And I believe keeping those in place is something that is vital to who we are and what we will continue to be in the future. Agreed, of course, funding needs to be in place to maintain these things. There is funding in place. And as we continue to bring in economic development, that will only create additional funding that we can continue to pour into these resources to keep them Dutch clean.
Same question to Mr. Van Stryland.
Yes, this is about 4 questions, but we do need to maintain our soccer fields. We need to maintain our streets and our sewers. We get a lot of compliments on our houses, and of course our citizens are responsible for that. But the historical buildings, there's been a lot of work for the Pella Historical Society, if I have the right word. We have to work hard on these things, and obviously as the city council has to make sure that our streets are nice. I'm not as big a fan on brick streets as some people are. I'm very fond, again, as what Grinnell has done with their streets and what Knoxville has done with their streets. Pressed concrete can look like bricks, and they are safe. Again, I've seen people, I'm not 35 anymore, and I've seen people trip on brick streets. So I like pressed concrete, looks like brick, but we have to maintain parks, et cetera.
To our Ward 2 candidates, first, Mr. Butler. As the city continues to grow and build new structures, how are we going to maintain our current properties and facilities?
Well, as I've alluded to earlier, the maintenance, I think we're behind on maintenance. I think part of the problem is that city budgets get pushed hard, and it's always exciting to build something new instead of maintaining something old. But like if we build this new rec center, you know in 10, 15 years, you're going to get to rebuild a swimming pool. So you should start laying off money to rebuild that swimming pool. That's what happened to I think the indoor pool here. Got built 30 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, had to rebuild it and borrow money to do it. So it's like I tell people when they buy a house, whatever you pay for the house, you're going to spend 2% a year to maintain it or update it. You might not spend anything for 4 or 5 years, but then all of a sudden you got to put on a new roof. So you better be ready for that. And so that's the same way with our structures. You got to be ready to fix them when they need it. We've got places that need it right now.
Mr. Banstra, the same question to you.
Yeah, the question was how to maintain our current properties. And one thing, we're living in an era of hyperinflation right now, but inflation is natural throughout the course of time. You just look at it. So if you want to maintain, you have to grow, because the costs of maintaining are naturally going to go up, whether it be salaries, whether it be insurance premiums, they are going to go up year after year. So if you don't have additional growth to create the revenue to cover that, you're going to be going backwards. And you don't have to travel too far into southern Iowa and see where that happens. So I think that one of the best ways that we can maintain those existing facilities, maintain those existing amenities, is that we have to keep promoting the economic growth that many of us have talked about already tonight.
Dr. Smith, I'd like to offer you an opportunity after the clarifying question was asked to respond, if you'd like to at this point.
Everybody did hit that, but yes, that was a very difficult question to start with. I was sitting there trying to bite my tongue going, where am I going with this? But no, we have talked a lot about infrastructure and community development, and that is exactly how we pay for things. If we stop moving forward, we are moving backwards. It just comes down to fiscal responsibility, and the people that are running our chamber, they really need to be conscious of the fiscal. They need to know what we need to do. We need to address what elements. And yes, the fancy, flashy, wonderful, great things can be scaled back and make them very practical, very useful, and sometimes even better, because they're going to fit what our kids need or what our adults need. And sometimes that is just the best plan of action.
Thank you. All right, please join me in a round of applause in thanking Dr. Green for facilitating tonight. He does an absolutely wonderful job, and on behalf of the PACE Alliance, thank you very much. Also, I would like to thank all the candidates up here tonight. It's never easy to sit up here and have questions fired at you, but you all did a great job, and I want to also commend you for being very mindful of the time constraints that we put you under. That way we got as many questions in as possible. We had a lot of audience questions that were turned in, and we would all be here way past our bedtimes if we asked all of those. But I would encourage you to reach out to the candidates and have them answer your questions. I know many of them personally, none of them are shy, and they do like to talk. So I'm sure they would be happy to visit with you about those. I would also like to thank Union Street Players, and specifically our sound engineer, Xavier Clark, who's up in the sound booth this evening, helping us with the sound system, and also to the City of Pella for letting us use the auditorium here in the community center. With that, we conclude tonight's City Council Candidate Forum. We encourage you, as stated earlier, to visit our website, pella.org, to read the written answers that the candidates have provided on some additional questions as well. And most importantly, don't forget to vote on November 7th. So on behalf of the PACE Alliance, thank you all and have a great evening.